Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We take a look at the storm that's going to affect us tomorrow afternoon, mostly later in the afternoon, early evening, through the overnight tomorrow night with some accumulating snow, plowable snow for most of us. Not a huge snow event, and there is still some uncertainty about it. I want to kind of leave that up front. We should have more certainty than we do, about 36 hours, or not even, more like 30 hours from the beginning of the kind of the heart of the event. But we are where we are. We're going to talk about why there's some uncertainty left. Try to be honest with you about kind of what we can and can't know about this storm. Why it's a complicated system in terms of why the models have struggled with how to resolve it and things like that. But let's take a look. I think we can talk about this as we go through. So the satellite actually tells a lot of the story of the big picture of what's going on, which is why we're going to start with that. I usually start with satellite anyway. But here's today's system. Unorganized, and we're definitely kind of warmer here. Low levels getting some rain. Most areas above 1,000 feet, about 750 feet, getting basically snow out of this. Not really much snow though. It's pretty unorganized. Could be a slushy inch, maybe even two in a couple of spots, but basically not that big a deal today. After this moves through, though, we're left with kind of the leftover of what's happened. Now, there's two main factors, two main players in what's going on. First of all, you can see here is the southern jet stream. You can see it in the satellite here, and basically wherever the jet stream is, that's a fast-moving basically river of air in the atmosphere, and along that we've got pieces of energy that kind of are just waiting to kind of link up, find the right spot in the trough in order to develop into a surface low that then obviously allows precipitation to form. So here's the southern piece, and then here you can see the northern trough. It's basically this cloud line here gives you a good idea of where that northern trough is, and you get some clouds that don't look overly impressive now, but that are diving down into that. And it's this interaction between kind of leftover energy here and energy diving down into the northern jet stream that are going to combine to create a low pressure system that rides up the coast. Then we have two main problems in terms of actually figuring out what's going to happen in terms of how much snow we get. One, how strong is that system going to get? What's going to determine that is basically how much interaction between the southern and northern jet stream. There's going to be enough that it will create a storm that will be strengthening as it comes up the coast, but this is not going to be a blockbuster. We're not getting the northern jet stream and the southern jet stream to fully link up. That's how we get like big storms. That's not going to happen with this system. The timing's not quite right, and because this first system is kind of sucking some of the energy out of the way too, that kind of tends to inhibit it. This is part of the problem. This first system coming through so only about 24 hours before the second system means the models, they have a really hard time resolving what to do with those two. There's been times when basically the models, especially in the long term, tried to turn this all into one system. That's not unusual that the models have a hard time resolving, and actually that might have been a more expected outcome. A lot of times that is what happens, but here there's just enough distance between the two that it is going to kind of be two systems, and the models have really struggled. How strong is this system going to be, and then the exact track, which always matters, and models always kind of, we're at about where we would normally be with that. There's always a little bit of wiggle room in the track. What's different is most of the tracks that are a little further east, part of the reason that happens is that it doesn't link these two systems up quite as well. So we either get a system that's a little weaker and further east, which kind of doubles down on a lower amount of snow, or a system that's closer to the coast and a little bit stronger, which of course pushes us in both directions towards a little bit more snow. So that's why we've got still a decent amount of uncertainty. Let's take a look at radar. This is way more impressive than it actually is. This is pretty light. There's a couple of areas of moderate precipitation in it. Also, it's less rain than it actually looks like currently across the Northeast. And whatever rain happens this afternoon will transition to more snow, even at the lower elevations, although I think will be snow for most areas above 1,000 feet in Vermont. And again, here you see a little bit of radar reflection of that upper level piece of energy that's going to impact us, and you can see a little bit of leftover energy that's going to be the southern piece of energy. Let's take a look at this in a different way. We can take a look at it on, this is the vorticity map. This is at the mid-level. Here you can see, there's your jet stream, your southern jet stream. Here is your northern jet stream. Here's that energy diving into the south. At the upper levels, it's a little further back. Same thing here. But it's a decent amount of distance they have to cover in order to kind of link up, and that's happening, but it's not going to be in a total, for a really strong storm to say you'd have all of the latitudes here, kind of everything lined up in one, and that would create a real big storm. That's not going to happen this time, but it is going to be enough to cause some issues. So let's take a look at track issues. So like I said, the closer track actually also ends up with a stronger storm, and so there's several models that want to take it pretty close to the coast. that basically bring it up the coast. This means mixing along the coast. We're probably closer to this. I think this is a more likely scenario. There's still a couple models that bring it quite out to sea and give us this out to sea track with the weaker storm would give us very little amount of snow, maybe an inch or two. This system, a little bit to the west, gives us a little bit more snow than I'm predicting right now. And I think we're closer to this. I don't think we're quite there. I think models are getting a little too ambitious still, a lot of the western models. So that you'll see that reflected in my snowfall map, which might be a little bit an inch or two lower than some people around, but just as an FYI, kind of where I think things are going to be. And I do think south and east areas get more snow than we do get here in southern Vermont. If you're in the Berkshires, you're in like the Worcester Hills and things like that, central Connecticut, you probably get a little bit more snow down there than we do here. But if we take this, if we go to the where the track to the very western edge of the track options here, then we could be that could shift a little bit closer to us where we actually get the most. Nobody's getting a huge amount of snow out of this. I'd say 8 to 10 inches is probably about the maximum anybody's going to get out of this. But I think most of that will be to the south of Vermont. So let's take a quick look. Here's a way that the one model's version of how things happen. Let's wait for it to refresh here. All right, so here was where we are kind of today. You can see here's the first system comes through. Not much going on, not a real strong system, but then we get this leftover energy. It consolidates for a bit, and then it starts to develop tomorrow, and then you see it kind of rides up the coast. This model is not the furthest west model, but this model is definitely on the western edge enough that it would give us maybe even a couple inches more snow than we're looking at currently. But this is a pretty good representation of what's going to happen. First system gets out of here, and the models struggle with this. What to do with leftover energy? When does it link up? And you're not going to nail this for sure till the system actually develops, which won't be till tomorrow morning or late overnight tonight. So we're going to at best tell you that there's going to be some uncertainty basically up until the storm happens. That's just kind of the way it is with this system. All right. So before I talk specifics about the snowfall totals, this is a good chance to remind all of you, if you haven't liked my or subscribed to my YouTube channel before, I would encourage you to do so. It helps make sure you don't miss any of my videos, and it helps make sure that new people can find me. Give a like, or if you have any questions, ask in the comments. That also helps people find me. It's probably the easiest place for me to respond at this point. I tend to do most everything through YouTube. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So let's talk about specifics for snow. Basically, 3 to 5 inches for a lot of us in southern Vermont. A little bit more in the highest elevations of the southern greens, basically Stratton South. I think you see 5 to 7 inches of snow. 2 to 4 across northern Windsor County, a lot of Rutland County. If you head a little further north than that, you're kind of amounts lessen as you get further away from the system. I think, and then 5 to 7 starts to encroach in a wider swath from the Monadnock region and down in through the Worcester Hills and things like that. Southern New Hampshire, southeastern New Hampshire gets more of that 5 to 7 inches before you start to maybe get some mixing right in along the coast. Like I mentioned, there are some models that have a little bit west of this, and you can basically add a couple inches onto this if we end up with a more western track, which is definitely a possibility. I'd say that's like maybe a 30%, 40% chance of happening. So definitely that wouldn't be shocking if that happened. And that would mean, like for me here, I'm thinking like 4 or 5 inches in Londonderry tomorrow, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if we got 6, 7, maybe even 8 inches of snow. More than that, and I think we're starting to get unexpected. Wouldn't be the first time I was really surprised, but that's definitely possible. So if you're up in the 2 to 4, getting 6 inches of snow wouldn't be shocking for some of those areas. And then the 5 to 7, if somebody got close to 10 inches of snow, wouldn't be shocking. But I think this is the best estimate on what will probably happen. I don't think there's much of a chance we get less than this. It seems like the storm is going to happen. But again, not an impossibility that you ended up even a little bit less than these totals if the storm there's a couple models still that really don't bring the storm together, and then we only end up with maybe 1 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 in some of these places. But again, I think that's unlikely. Here's a pretty good example of what I think is probably going to happen. Sorry, I'm not more confident, but that's kind of the reality of this forecast. Storm details: precipitation begins between about 1 and 3. Travel will start to get tricky, I'd say 3 to 5 p.m., somewhere in that range. It starts to get a little slick. It'll be cold, so snow will stick, but the good thing is it'll be cold, and cold snow doesn't tend to be as slippery as when it's greasy and things like that. Snow wraps up pretty quickly. It's only about a 12-hour storm between about 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. The snow is wrapping up. Could snow kind of heavy between about 7, 8 o'clock and midnight. That's when the heaviest snow will come. And an inch an hour for an hour or something like that wouldn't be shocking. I'd be surprised if we get a heavy band in here, but you never know. If that happens, obviously that can always change snow totals and also travel issues. Travel Sunday evening will be difficult, so if you're trying to head out for dinner or something like that on Sunday evening, just be aware it's going to be slow going. And we'll still be a little slick in spots on Monday, but by the time we get to Monday morning, This will probably be plowed off pretty well. Salt won't work real well on this because we're going to get real cold Monday, Sunday night, into Monday. So whatever's left on the roads, we could maintain like not bad travel, but kind of just a little bit of snow, because when they can't salt and kind of get it down to pavement, that makes it a little tricky. So it could still be a little slow going tomorrow, even though it won't actually be that bad to travel, just a little slower than normal. Blowing snow will continue also through Monday, so any spots where the snow blows across the road, that'll definitely be happening. That'll probably happen through Tuesday or Wednesday as well, so just keep an eye out for those kinds of things. I do want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. They help support what I do here at the Rescue River Guy. If you're interested in becoming a patron, you can check the link in the description below. It'll help you find out details on what you get as a patron and how that helps support the channel. Otherwise, I'll be back sometime tomorrow, I think, with an update on this as we start to get close to the storm. Not sure exactly what time that'll happen, so one of the reasons you should subscribe is so that you get notification when my video comes out. All right, we'll see you soon, and then I'll definitely be back on Tuesday with a look at next week's work week forecast after the holiday.